We're
So
going to
you know
be,
we're now going live in
are we live yet?
2.
Is she serious?
Well, she was
Hello.
smiling when she did it, so yeah.
Yeah. We're live now.
Okay. Well, we'll just let people join us as they come. But I want to wish everybody good afternoon and thank you for joining us for this Economic Development Week panel discussion on building entrepreneurship and tourism in Gallup and McKinley County. I'm Bruce Armstrong, I'm Economic Development Manager for the Greater Gallup Economic Development Corporation, GGEDC for short. The mission of GGEDC is to drive economic growth through building on local assets and strategic partnering to target attraction, retention, and expansion of industrial employers that provide economic-based jobs in the Gallup-McKinley County area and to support and promote a business-friendly environment. Economic Development Week was created by the International Economic Development Council in 2016 to increase awareness of local programs that create jobs, advance career development opportunities, and improve the quality of life in communities everywhere. This week marks the 6th annual Economic Development Week and also the 6th time GGEDC has participated and observed the week with activities featuring and participating local partners. Activities this week included daily articles in the Gallup Independent presented by several GGEDC partners, including each of the panelists here today. The panelists represent the Small Business Development Center at UNM Gallup, the City of Gallup Tourism and Marketing Department, Gallup Arts, and Gallup Main Street Arts and Cultural District. Other partners who contributed in the articles were the Northwest New Mexico Council of Governments, the Gallup Business Improvement District, and the Gallup McKinley Chamber of Commerce. So we want to thank all of our partners. On Tuesday, GGEDC hosted its annual Business Retention and Expansion Luncheon. The keynote speaker was Alicia Keys, Cabinet Secretary of the New Mexico Economic Development Department. Today, we present the second of 2 panel discussions on topics of interest to the community and to GGEDC's efforts to help improve the quality of life in the Gallup-McKinley County area. At this point, I want to recognize and give special thanks to the staff at GGEDC, Executive Director Patty Lundstrom, Deputy Director Michael Sage, Office Manager Melody Nadawa, and also to our Board of Directors, which consists of local business people. All work tirelessly to help move many good things forward here in Gallup and McKinley County. Patty, if you're on the call, do you want to say a few words? I'm not sure if he's joined us.
Patty is not in the office or in
Okay,
the room right now, so
so we'll get her words later.
momentarily.
All right, and Melody, if you want to post the live stream information in the chat, if anybody
Oh,
wants
yes.
to live stream it.
Getting that here.
So in today's panel discussion, we will be discussing the topics of entrepreneurship and tourism with several Gallup-based organizations that promote and address these areas. GGEDC wants to help get the word out about important resources available in Gallup that support people seeking to start and run successful businesses, and also people who already have businesses that would like to be more successful or to expand. Be they restaurants, bars, art galleries, or auto mechanics, businesses and entrepreneurs of all sorts play an important role in helping Gallup and McKinley County to grow and also to benefit from New Mexico's major tourism industry. I was just looking at some facts today. These were 2018 pre-COVID statistics, but just to cite the impact of New Mexico's tourism sector in 2018, over 37.5 million visitors spent $7.1 billion in New Mexico. Visitor spending sustained over 8.5% of all jobs in the state, and tourism generated $900 in state and local taxes for every New Mexican household. So in addition to its work recruiting and retaining industrial employers, GGEDC also provides educational opportunities to the community. They're centered on economic development. We organize annual economic roundtables, make presentations to multiple community organizations, and organize events like this one during Economic Development Week in order to help people gain a greater understanding of economic development in the area. GGEDC also participated with these panelists and several other community members in a Gallup retail market analysis completed just before COVID hit. GGEDC's 2020 Economic Roundtable was focused on retail development and attraction. The roundtable and the Gallup retail study highlighted a number of opportunities for entrepreneurs to enter the greater Gallup market, and we'll be touching on that in today's discussion. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our panelists, and I'm going to say your name and you say hi so everybody can see who you are. Hello, Kara.
Hey.
So Kara is the Executive Director of Gallup Main Street Arts and Cultural District. She also mentors entrepreneurs through UNM's Rainforest Innovations Campus Program, teaches in Sierra Nevada University's Interdisciplinary Arts MFA program, and serves on the board of Keep Gallup Clean and Beautiful. Jennifer, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Jennifer Lazars. The City of Gallup Tourism and Marketing Department kicked off in 2015 with the aim to promote Gallup as a domestic and international destination. Jennifer has run the department since the fall of 2016. The City of Gallup is proud partner with the New Mexico True brand, and the department focuses on tourism-related public relations, sales, marketing, business development, and operations of the Lodgers Tax Fund. Cindy Jarvison, say hi.
Hi.
Since June 2015, Cynthia M. Jarvison has been director of the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, at UNM Gallup. Cindy is responsible for consulting with area entrepreneurs who not only want to start a business, but also may have an already established business. In her words, she is all about fueling small business success by assisting entrepreneurs in business growth and development. She has dedicated herself to helping small businesses succeed, improve lives, and create jobs. She has focused her outreach to serve specialized groups, including veterans, women, and minority-owned businesses, to ensure they are aware how to access valuable resources and capital. She has also taken many businesses to federal, state, and local government procurement levels with the guiding principle that entrepreneurship will lead us out of poverty. Cindy is a member of the Navajo Nation, where she was born, raised, and plans to utilize her EMBA to further advance her imprint in the community. And Rose Eason. Hi, Rose.
Hi.
Rose has served as the Executive Director of Gallup Arts since June 2016. Under her direction, Gallup Arts has significantly expanded its role within the community and deepened its positive community impact. In her work with Gallup Arts, she has secured and executed over $445,000 in grant projects, including a $100,000 National Endowment for the Humanities Digital Projects for the Public grant to showcase Gallup's collection of New Deal art. So welcome, panelists. And I want to start off by posing a very general question, and we can discuss what is entrepreneurship and how does your organization promote it? And maybe before we go to that, we can just go around and quickly plug your organizations. I'll go to Kara. Just talk about Gallup Main Street.
Great. Yeah, Gallup Main Street does both the work of a Main Street organization. We're also a state designated arts and cultural district. So we actually see that work is very integrated, and we often look to, when we talk about supporting entrepreneurs, we often intertwine that with thinking about the creative economy. So creative entrepreneurs, and a lot of the work we do sort of pivots in that direction, even though we use the term entrepreneurs very broadly. We like to see business of all types downtown, and I know we're going to be talking more about that soon. So we do work to support downtown, both in our public art and our historic buildings, as well as supporting our amazing small business owners, and thinking strategically alongside of our partners, many of which are here right now, about sort of how to create vitality, specifically in our district, but also sometimes that really is a conversation about economic vitality in Gallup as a whole.
Good, thank you, Kara. How about Cindy? Talk about the SBDC, what you do.
Okay, so the UNM Gallup SBDC is a company, or is an organization that covers the McKinley County, which goes into the Navajo Nation and the Zuni tribe. And what we are is we get funded from the Small Business Administration, and that money is then matched by the New Mexico State Legislature. There are SBDCs all across the United States, and each state has their network. I'm part of the New Mexico network, and we have over 19 centers all across the state of New Mexico, with the closest ones being Grants and Farmington. And we do get funding, like I mentioned, from the SBA, and it's matched by the New Mexico State Legislature. And we do help with small business growth and development. We also help entrepreneurs that are currently in business. More recently, we've helped with the Disaster Recovery Assistance Program. So we're just recovering from that as well. So that's a little bit about my organization, but as we go through the panel discussion, I'll be talking a little bit more about our services in depth.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Let's go to Rose, Gallup Arts.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Gallup Arts is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're also the state designated arts council for McKinley County. And our mission is to foster creativity, culture, commerce, and quality of life in Gallup and McKinley County through the arts. We serve on average about 20,000 McKinley County artists and residents every year through over a dozen different programs, everything from operating 2 downtown art galleries, to youth art programs, to art education programs, to public art programs, to, as you mentioned in my generous introduction, thank you, Bruce, our New Deal Art Project. And so we work specifically to support our local artists. 1 in 4 McKinley County residents makes at least part of their living through the arts. And we work diligently to create opportunities for them to show and sell their work here at home, instead of having a kind of creative brain, drain to Santa Fe and Phoenix and LA. Gallup is where it's at when it comes to art making and production, and we want to keep that here. And so that's a big part of what Gallup Arts works to do, and that's our kind of perspective on entrepreneurship.
Thanks so much, Rose. Let's go to Jennifer.
So hi, my name's Jennifer. I run the Gallup Tourism and Marketing Department, and what is really important about our department is we're the city's extension for tourism-related economic development. Technically, I am a destination marketing organization, because I am a one-woman show, so I get to be a whole organization. And the role of a DMO in a community is to be responsible for promoting a community as an attractive travel destination, and to strengthen the economic position and provide opportunity for people in the community through those tourism-driven assets. So the state of New Mexico defines tourism as 60 miles outside of a destination. So that is a really helpful thing for us because there's a lot of people who are passing through because of our I-40 corridor, Route 66, and then their interests in outdoor adventures, art, and culture in our area. So my department acts as the primary marketing agent. And in the description earlier, I also do sales and public relations and that kind of thing. But predominantly my role is to try to get people to come here so that the entrepreneurs and those other people who are working on retaining business and growing their businesses have a consumer base that's coming from outside of town and adding into the local economy.
Very good. Thank you, Jennifer. So I'd like to ask the folks that are focused on entrepreneurship, what you understand as the definition of entrepreneurship and how you would describe it. And let me start with Kara.
Great. Well, I definitely think entrepreneurship is sort of a spirit or a state of mind to some extent. We want to be able to have an environment that supports entrepreneurship is something we often refer to. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this too, but kind of the entrepreneur ecosystem is a word that we use a lot, but that's involves many factors because we want people who want to start businesses or take risks to feel like they can. And so I think that, I think it's sort of a mindset and that there's some innovation involved in that mindset and a little bit of willingness. And then behind that, of course, is oftentimes a lot of strategy and you need certain resources. And that's where we come in. And that's where a lot of our partners come in. But entrepreneurship on itself, what we try to foster, ultimately, there's creative, innovative, and risky.
Creative, innovative, and risky. Would you agree with that, Cindy?
Yes, I would. So do you want me to begin?
Yes, I want you to talk about your understanding of entrepreneurship.
Okay, so first and foremost, entrepreneurship is passion, persistence, and doing what you love. Entrepreneurship also takes time, money, experience, and creativity. All are essential ingredients to launching a new business. But more important than any of these is action. You may have the most original business idea and the fullest bank account and all the smarts in the world, but unless you act on your good ideas and do whatever it takes to get your idea up and running, there will be no business. Each and every one of us is an entrepreneur. We look at the world in a specific lens, and that lens is defined by our passions and what we love when we look through those lenses. We see different potential, we interpret differently, we see different doors open and close. We take that passion and define that purpose to execute those dreams, to build our dreams. When you finalize that passion and understand it, ultimately you become absolutely unstoppable and you have a clear vision and purpose. Everyone has a purpose and it matters because it contributes to the community, whether in a small or large way, even if it's in a small level. How many times have you thought, gee, wouldn't it be a good idea to make widgets and sell it? Well, good ideas pop into everyone's head all the time. Entrepreneurs see a better way of filling a need and they brainstorm a new product that will solve a problem. But rarely do people take the time and energy to look more closely at their good idea, research it a bit and get the wheels rolling. They just don't take action. Entrepreneurship is launching those ideas. Entrepreneurship is a way of thinking. However, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Success depends only on personal ambitions and means, but also on external factors beyond a person's realm of control. And how we promote it at SBDC is we're in the trenches with the rest of them. That's how we promote it.
Thank you, Cindy. So with the idea of passion and creativity, Rose, could you speak to, I think mainly the entrepreneurs that you're working with are artists. So you might have a different understanding.
I was going to say, preach, Cindy. I think, a lot of times people don't necessarily think of artists as entrepreneurs, and I think that they're misunderstood in that way. But to be successful as an artist, you have to have all of the qualities that Cindy and Kara just outlined. in addition to, talent. And I think that that's something that artists too in our community benefit from, is looking at themselves as entrepreneurs and taking ownership of that role, and then doing what Cindy said, making a plan, accessing resources, strategizing, doing the work, and putting in the effort, and then taking the action. And so that's kind of what Gallup Arts aims to do, is bring together just the purely artistic, creative side together with the business side, and help artists be successful in that way, and kind of see their talents, what's the word, like, result in in them being able to a lot. And
As we've lost you there, but we'll come back to you. Let me go to Kara. Kara, you mentioned the creative economy, and I'd like to hear more about what that means, and also the term entrepreneurial ecosystem. So if you could address both of those. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start with ecosystem. I think that that's something that through our Business Resource Center and through our efforts over the last year to really pivot and try to offer these resources for small business owners who we often also see as entrepreneurs, and to sort of generate interest in new business downtown. We refer to an ecosystem, and that involves a lot of players. And we're just one of them. And I think we kind of hope to see ourselves as a catalyst, a connector of many things for folks as part of this ecosystem, to sort of spur the interest, and to start a dialogue, start connecting people together, to see that there's other people out there that are also interested in starting a business, to offer resources where it's necessary. But sometimes you may not need the resources. You may just want to know that you have some support, and that that there's a friendly business mix ready to accept you, or that there's other people that you can connect with to talk about your idea. There's also people that are a part of an ecosystem that are really important, access to capital, et cetera. So the ecosystem is kind of comprised of many, many folks. Us just being one. UNM Gallup's a great, and SBDC is a great example of a key player in an ecosystem, access to education, and to have a knowledge production, as well as the work that Cindy does at SBDC. And we all often work in tandem. Sometimes by the time they meet with Cindy and get great business ideas, and end up kind of with us, maybe to further their business ideas, to launch it, to maybe get it into a brick and mortar. So we're an ecosystem is kind of what we have here in this call. Really, is just a kind of network of folks all committed to the same thing. And of course, entrepreneurs are also needed as part of the ecosystem, but it is important to have that they're able to recognize that there's, this kind of system in place. And then to speak to the creative economy, I mean, that is to what Rose is saying. We do see artists as entrepreneurs as well as business people. I think that's really important. And it's really important here. Arts and culture is one of our key economic drivers, especially downtown, for Gallup. And to not see artists as entrepreneurs here is to really miss the mark. And so, but the creative economy can also include folks who sort of intersect with art or creative pursuits. Examples would be like photography or graphic design, gallerists, for example, and we're happy to be able to support some of these types of businesses downtown, for example. So the creative economy can be quite broad, actually, which is great. And there's always lots of room to sort of interpret what that can mean, especially when it comes to some of the more technology-based side of the creative economy, when it kind of gets more into marketing and design and such.
Rose, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's great to think broadly about the creative economy, because that gets us to a point in the discussion where we see how everything's connected. And when like one branch or one network is strong, it strengthens other areas, and it creates kind of a rising tide that lifts all boats. So yeah, support on and like she was saying, marketing, the marketing branch of things, the technological side of things, and those like kind of support roles. And then, you know, when you, and even if you just take one little microcosm, like the performing arts or theater companies, and they support restaurants, and then, you know, food is part of the creative economy. Or if you think about tourism and the creative economy, people who are producing souvenirs, or even I would say people doing Adobe construction for our, you know, our state, feed into that tourism economy, which supports the creative economy. Anyway, I'm rambling, but the point is it's all connected. and when we strengthen one aspect, we strengthen all aspects, and it all comes together at the end of the day.
Thank you, Rose. So I wanted to ask Kara a little bit more about Gallup Main Street and your deep dive program. I don't know what you're exactly calling that, but the program that's promoting entrepreneurs and Gallup Main Street's interest in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. So what we sort of launched was a series of programs that all kind of come together under what we call the Downtown Business Resource Center, which exists as a series of sort of virtual and offline events, as well as a physical space in downtown Gallup. And that was important for several reasons. So what this comprises is, especially during COVID-19 recovery, of course, we weren't doing a lot of in-person things. Having a physical space didn't have as much importance during that time. So some of the things that this program has encompassed is workshops for small businesses, especially with sort of thinking of new ways of business. And so that's sort of where business owners had to to reinvent a little bit themselves, thus becoming re-entrepreneuring themselves a little bit to think about their businesses and stretching it during this time, which, you know, ultimately will become something that will be beneficial long-term, being able to do more e-commerce, being more proficient with online marketing, or thinking about ways to diversify revenue streams. So we were sort of focused on offering resources and vis-a-vis mostly workshops, to sometimes mentoring and other types of kind of information sharing to small businesses. We also launched a series of boot camps called Hatchet, which were entrepreneur-focused boot camps, which we've offered 3 iterations of, and twice we've been able to offer pitch competitions where folks actually received money to kind of put towards launching their idea. And we try to find ways to, what we essentially would like to see is a pipeline where we're able to support folks who maybe come in at a really early stage, and we find ways to support them either through the programs we're already offering or by connecting to them to one of the people here already to kind of keep this idea going. And ideally, eventually for me, right, is to get them in a brick and mortar downtown. But, you know, ultimately we just want the support to be there in general in the pipeline. So we've offered over a dozen workshops hosted by local and regional folks. We've partnered with West and Farmington to host some of these workshops and are continue to be in conversation about what this could look long-term, if there's room here for a small scale incubator in downtown Gallup that would support small business or small base manufacturing businesses that are interested in opening here. And we also just offer one-on-one support ourselves, so people can drop in at any time. So in the physical iteration of the resource center acts as a space where there's workspace available if anyone needs it who comes to one of our programs, for example, doesn't have a brick and mortar, wants to work on something. There's also a suite of equipment available for small business owners in the districts to use to further their ideas, as well as entrepreneurs who participate in our programs have access to that equipment as well. And we welcome people into the space to see it and to figure out how we can help and make that equipment useful. And we did also offer, and I'll just mention this because it was something we were lucky to be able to do when COVID first hit, was to offer grants to small businesses here, after COVID-19 recovery. So all of that kind of falls under our small business, downtown business, did I say that right? Downtown Business Resource Center. And we've kind of tried to replicate all of these resources and record them when possible to continually kind of have an archive, but also build up our own resource center for folks on our website, which is accessible to anyone through our business hub. But that is something that's continuing. We've been running that ever since for the last 6 months. And we're really excited to think about ways we can continue doing this and to reshape it as necessary as the community, as we see needs in the community arise.
Very good. I'd like to ask Cindy specifically how your organization works in supporting entrepreneurs and developing small businesses.
So with going off what Kara just mentioned, one of the great aspects of our organization is that we're always partnered with other organizations that have aligning interests. An organization, as an organization, we exist through state and federal funding. We have a host organization, which is, in our case, is UNM Gallup Branch. We have 2 key services, one-on-one free consultation and training services. And these 2 services will help develop skilled entrepreneurs and strong businesses, all while creating and retaining jobs in our community. The SBDC also serves populations and many types of business owners, including women, minorities, and veterans. We are part of America's SBDC, as I had mentioned before, with each state having their own network, and we are part of the New Mexico network. Again, my coverage area is McKinley County. Because we are part of this network, our counselors go through an annual certification process, building professionals and certified business consultants to help get access to research resources. Sorry, I'm right on the train track. Commerce is alive and well in Gallup. So we're building and so what we do is we help with like research resources, and typically you pay thousands of dollars for these research tools, and we have access to those through our network, and they're very helpful tools. We have knowledgeable expertise that can help find new markets, accessing capital, managing financials, business growth, and planning strategically for successful business future. Our primary focus is to foster local and regional economic development. SBDCs can help you realize the dream of business ownership or help your existing business remain competitive in an ever complexing, changing global marketplace.
Very good. Well, the train going by, that's the sound of economic development, and Gallup is a railroad town. So it's good to remember that, keep it central, even if we can't hear sometimes. So I wanted to ask each of you, and I'm not ignoring Jennifer. Jennifer's focused on tourism here more than entrepreneurial development, but she has her hand in that as well. But we'll get to the tourism part in a couple of minutes here. But I just wanted to ask Kara, Cindy, and Rose to give us a successful example, or an example of success that you've seen in one of the clients you've worked with. So let's start with Rose.
So I know you gave us this question ahead of time, but I was really trying to think about just one example and I couldn't decide, Bruce. So I'm sorry. But it's because it feels like, especially in the arts, you can't single anyone out as one success story. We're so proud of all of our artists for everything they've accomplished. And we're just happy to be able to provide kind of a pipeline and a little bit of scaffolding to help them, just like Kara at Main Street and Cindy at the SBDC do through Gallup.
Losing you again there, Rose.
Networking. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not lost on my end. Can you hear me? It keeps telling me my internet connection is unstable. So apologies. Am I back? I'm sorry, Bruce.
You are. Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. I was just explaining that Gallup Arts creates a kind of a pipeline and some scaffolding to support artists in being successful. And we've offered artist-specific business management workshops, business trainings. We offer them professional development opportunities. We've actually showed at Art 123 Gallery. I think over 24 artists have had their first show with us, and they've gone on to show at other galleries. And so we've been able to kind of jumpstart their careers that way. And then as Kara was mentioning, you know, this last year we've had to pivot and kind of it's changed a lot about how we support artists this whole COVID situation. So we've done direct emergency relief grants to over 60 artists in our community. And then we've also equipped ourselves to help artists develop e-commerce websites or to make online sales or to develop their own websites, since we know that that's something that's not going to go away, that COVID has kind of made more urgent of a need, but that's good for them long term. So yeah, I couldn't just choose one success story. We've had so many artists who have started and we've just watched them grow, and now they're taking off and getting national recognition. And I think it just speaks to you know, again, the level of talent in Gallup and how we're just we're saturated in talent and we're just roaring and ready to go. And we're excited to just be a small part of that success at Gallup Arts.
It's great to hear that you're so successful that you can't narrow it down to one success story.
Right.
Congratulations for
Isn't
that.
it? It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So Kara, were you able to narrow it down to one or two, maybe five?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would share just one example of someone who had was a member of one of the co-ops downtown, and I think it kind of began conversations with Gallup Main Street sort of about a general interest to maybe be on their own a little bit, or kind of expand what they were doing into their own business. And through that, they participated in one of our entrepreneur boot camps, and were awarded funds through the pitch competition to work on a website and start to, you know, kind of get started with a digital sort of online presence. And then we were able to connect them with a property owner downtown where they were able to pop up for several months to sort of scale up to having a street front store. And while there last winter and this earlier this spring, we're able to take some of our workshops on marketing to kind of help continue to get build their brand and their business, and eventually have just recently moved on into their own building, not downtown, but that's okay. But you know, just that's a really great example of how a lot of things kind of worked together that I had mentioned before, and able to kind of see a success story.
Good. Well, I want to pivot to the tourism part, and recognizing that we can't have successful entrepreneurs without customers. And I think that's part of Jennifer's job, is helping bring the visitors in. We had the city did a retail market analysis with a professional consultant. The consultant was Place Dynamics, and Michael Stumpf, the principal of Place Dynamics, highlighted various opportunities to develop the local tourism industry and draw more people off of I-40 and into Gallup's downtown to help support local retailers, restaurants, bars, and generate more hotel stays. Could you talk, Jennifer, to who's coming to Gallup and what's drawing them here?
Yeah, you know, I want to start with, we have been developing a tourism industry for 4 years before Michael came along. So I want to talk about the plans that have been in place and how some of his suggestions just complemented that, because I don't want it to sound like Michael's suggestions are like, and now we have a tourism industry. One of the most important things that my department is addressing is destination touch points. So when you're looking at the process that somebody is going through to book a trip, you're looking at their inspiration for the trip, their pre-trip, which is the planning and booking of their trip, their experience within the destination, and then everything they do after they experience the trip. Everyone on this call can speak to having gone through all 4 of those steps. You want to get inspired to go somewhere. You want to figure out how to get there. You want to have a great experience once they're there. And then ideally, we hope, especially as a destination marketing organization, that you're going to share with everybody how great it was. So from an attraction standpoint, my focus is on really 2 of those 4 steps primarily. It's not to say that the other two steps get neglected, but what I'm predominantly doing is looking at the inspiration for the trip and then providing tools for the pre-trip planning and processing. My department is starting now to leverage some resources for the in-destination experience, and I'll get to that in a minute. But to answer your question, we are dealing with a diverse number of travelers because I-40 does not discriminate by age, race, gender, you name it. I-40 is equal for everyone. And so part of what Michael's study discussed was the opportunity to capture more traffic off of I-40. Currently, we are collecting about 47.5% of the I-40 market share, but that is in a stretch from, 7% of those people are doing hotel stays. Some are, the 10% are doing other overnight stays, so staying with friends and family. You've got 15% that are doing day trips and over 3 hours, and 12% under 3 hours. So my goal right now is, when you're looking at all that traffic coming down the interstate, is to isolate niches within that traffic to try to draw them in so that we're leveraging them for overnight stays and longer day trips. Because if they're just here for 2 or 3 hours, we're not necessarily capitalizing on the value of that tourist. Gas and a meal is great. We're never going to say no to some GRT, but what we really want is 3 meals, some gas, maybe buying some water bottles at the gas station, and then a hotel stay because you are having so much fun exploring the region, and then another meal the next day. So demographically speaking, one of our largest markets is the senior market. We are a snowbird route. So we've been doing a lot of marketing with AARP and targeting Route 66 type publications to first hit that boomer market, that senior market, because they have the most expendable resources and they have the most time to travel. There's data today, I was just looking at 65% of people who come to New Mexico own their vehicle. So the rest of that, that 35% are your flights, your people who are renting a car. So we're looking at capturing 65% who definitely have the vehicle and they're here. After we look at that senior market, we're looking to, I mentioned Route 66. Route 66, again, is age inclusive. Then we get further into people who are seeking, the next step, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit, your outdoor adventurers. We have so many captivating assets, and my department is, over the last 5 years, evolved to understand that I have 2 demographics to help understand how great those assets are. The first is the local community, to get that conversion so that we get out of, well, there's nothing to do here, or there's nothing to see here. And that, because what I've discovered in my job is the exterior community that comes in, that tourist goes, this is cool. Oh, look at that. And I see people from within our community go, oh, really? Oh, that is cool. So from a demographic standpoint, we're trying to get I-40 corridor, Route 66, your outdoor adventurers, you're looking at boomers, the Gen X, Gen Y kind of generations. We're starting to get more millennials in because millennials are getting a little bit older. Everyone else is traveling, but you're looking at different expenditure points. And from the data, that's what we're hitting, and convincing people to be inspired to travel here.
Thanks, Jennifer. So what specific things do you do, and how do you market? And how do you do that? How do you market Gallup?
So marketing is a multi-pronged approach. So the first and primary thing is we do have a brand. We've been operating under Gallup Real True, which is for art lovers, culture seekers, and outdoor adventurers. And we're going to continue to work within those parameters, but we're updating to a broader Visit Gallup as a destination, because we don't want someone who doesn't understand what Real True is about to be limited by that within our brand. And we now are leveraging that in multiple ways. So the first is digital. We are we've had a website for 5 years. It's beautiful, but we're going to launch a new one in this post-COVID world that has better business directories, has better link throughs to outdoor recreation assets, has updated photography, and is really reflecting the current community and not what tourism websites looked like 5 years ago. We are looking at a digital kiosk program internally that we're going to do touchscreen kiosks at various points in our community. We're going to pilot it this year, that can text people directions, can integrate with an app that has walking tours, that kind of a thing. Outside the community, we've got 14 billboards all along I-40. We had them before and we've grown in the number of billboards. That was something that was reflected within the retail market analysis that we responded to. Additionally, we've got ads in AARP, AAA. I'm running in Route Magazine, the New Mexico Route 66 Association. We have a digital ad buy. We've been doing radio ad buys for the last year. We have an exhaustive social media presence, and I'm really excited because we've partnered recently with an incredible asset here in New Mexico. And I encourage everyone on this call, when you get done, go visit newmexiconomad.com. The author behind that website, her name is Leslie Davis. She is in love with New Mexico and she's making us look fantastic. We have been exceptional partners lately. She's taken over our Twitter to help manage that account, and she's leveraging this huge New Mexico following through her website and driving traffic to us. So we're hitting all things. We're going print, we've got digital, we've got social media, and then we've got your roadside, your billboard, we've got radio. So we're trying a little bit of everything, and it's all data driven. And that's the most important part, because we want conversion, not just inspiration.
So the book you mentioned was New Mexico Nomad.
It's a website, actually. She's got fantastic social media. She's been doing some great stories here. She's going to be doing some footage coming up of balloon flights in our community, but she has taken a multi-pronged approach. She actually has remapped all of our outdoor murals recently. She took a drone, flew around, did new photography of those murals so that her map of our murals can then integrate into our new website, because our mural walking tour, to go back to complementing that arts culture, is, it's a great free asset for people in our community. It's walking around businesses, and we're hoping that through, the storefront attraction and those beautiful murals, we're getting those people walking in the door of the businesses as well. So newmexiconomad.com is Miss Davis's website. I do highly recommend that for all New Mexico partners. But yeah, we've got, visitgallup.com is now live. It'll redirect you to galluprealtrue.com, and that sucker is going to get a facelift in September. That's really exciting.
Thank you, Jennifer. Kara, as you mentioned, arts and culture are primary draws to the area. So I'm wondering how you also help market Gallup.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bruce. I was actually going to ask if I could jump in because we actually partner with Jennifer a lot on this, but one of the most direct ways I think pertinent to this conversation is that we see our business community as a tourism, as a attraction asset for the downtown community. And I think, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is arts and culture. We have a lot of arts and cultural businesses, and telling the story of arts and culture of Gallup is a great resource for tourism. But the other is that we just have a lot of history here. We have a lot of businesses that have been run for many generations, and we don't have a really generative advertising landscape here in Gallup. We don't have a lot of fancy print magazines here. We don't have a TV station, et cetera. So one of the things we do as an organization is try to amplify the voices of small business owners here as sort of part of the storytelling around downtown Gallup, which in turn is an asset for enticing people to want to come here or to visit here again, to revisit something here, and ultimately to go into these businesses. And one of the ways we did that was through a video series ongoing called Dig Into Downtown Stories, where we talk to local business owners, new and old, about their business, why they started a business, why they enjoy being in Gallup, specifically downtown. And just to sort of draw out some of the background behind the folks behind these stores that we have here. And again, it's all in an effort to get more people here and more people interested in these businesses, and then to get people interested in starting new businesses, right? Because they see what's here in a different way. So we often do promotion. We are interested in hosting, mural tours ourselves, or partnering and promoting that as well. We help produce murals in the downtown district because we see those as great assets. We do other types of promotion as well, just generally here for PSAs, print advertising. We do a lot of social media storytelling and sharing of things that happen in downtown, specifically when it comes to our businesses. So we hope that all of that works together. We definitely do a lot of communications as part of the work we do to support entrepreneurs and small businesses in downtown.
Hey, Bruce, I'd like to add something. There was a really important question in the chat about return on investment and how do we track that? You know, that is an integral part now in the tourism industry. And in fact, it's actually been a little contentious just this last week. When you're spending money on any kind of advertising in Denver, there's different levels of tracking. So I'm going to work backwards from destination out, because I think this is important for any entrepreneur who's looking at, is this the destination I want to open up in, for example? The first thing I look at is the Smith Travel Report, also known as the STAR Report. This report goes through, and hotels are surveyed and present data on a weekly basis to the Smith Travel Report about their occupancy, their RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, the demand for those rooms, and it compares, there's 3 or 4 other metrics in the report, but they compare for you what the year over year looks like. So it's been fascinating. Like, for example, I can tell you, just looking at it today from last week's numbers, last year at this time, we were in the 30% occupancy range. And this year we're in the 63 to 65% occupancy range. So that makes me really happy, because there's a couple things I can interpret from that data. First and foremost, unquestionably, travel is returning to Gallup, New Mexico in a post-pandemic world. But secondarily, what we can look at is when we start to do an analysis of the lodgers tax coming out of those hotel properties. You know, the city collects lodgers tax, and we can see which hotels have the highest rate of occupancy based on the amount collected. And we can start to see, based on that data, okay, if somebody's staying in a hotel room that the average night is $85, there are certain demographics industry-wide that tell us, you know, this is the customer who stays in a room for $85. So we can start to generate a consumer profile reflexively out of that hotel data. The next things we look at from a return on investment are the metrics of interaction with any of the media. You know, you can geofence around a billboard, for example, and track how many cars may have driven past a billboard. Currently, we don't have that in place, because right now, with the volume of billboards, we're trying to do a big blanket. If we had less billboards, that geofencing becomes more integral, because you really want to see is, you know, billboard at mile marker 81, how many cars are going past that, you know. Other things you look at is, for example, on social media, you can look at whether or not people are posting in that 4th stage of the consumer destination touch points. So they've inspiration, pre-trip, trip. Are we seeing interaction with the destination from a social media standpoint? Are they tagging us? Are they sharing? This is a strategy that the New Mexico Tourism Department has really leaned into the last couple of years, where you can actually go on social media and find posts that people have visited your destination have posted, and be able to reutilize that in your own campaigns. It's called the user-generated content. So we're looking at that social media component. And again, why is this important? It helps us to not only know where they hear, but it helps for an entrepreneurial standpoint to build your consumer profile. We want to know if we're going to be, you know, Cindy and Kara and Rose are really working with an artist to develop a new business concept. We want to be able to tell them, you know, given the opportunity that's out there, this is exactly the kind of consumer who's coming to Gallup from outside of town. So looking at that lodgers tax collections, that STAR report, but then also looking at who is interacting with the destination in social media. We can also see, particularly in the digital advertising sector, we can track the length of time somebody has interacted with an ad, and then what regions they may be from. And then we can look at data of who has traveled to this region. So we can see if we're marketing, for example, in Seattle, but none of our advertising has clicks from Seattle, we have a problem. But if we're advertising in Seattle and then we see a large change in traffic from that Seattle area to our digital platforms and in other metrics that we're looking at as who is here, that's really beneficial for us because we're going, okay, that's translatable for not just an entrepreneur, but an existing business's standpoint to say, these are the customers we know who are coming. We would love to continue to work with you to develop product and experiences that meets the existing customer. Because the reality is in that 4-step destination touch point, that post trip is one of the most important things in any destination travel, in any business relationship, is you want somebody to walk out the door and talk about how great their experience was. I loved the art gallery. I loved XYZ, the coffee shop. One of my favorite stories in our community is from A&J Tire. They actually had a gentleman going down the highway who blew a tire on a horse trailer, and they got permission from the city and they blocked the alley behind the business to put the horse so that they could fix the trailer. And then they told, it was on social media. There were all of this positive feedback about what is essentially an indirect tourism business in our community. But it was such a great reflection of how understanding the needs of the customer in that demographic, meeting the business need, and what the business offered, made Gallup look fantastic on various review platforms, things like that, and can drive more traffic to that business and to our destination. Because if someone's traveling between Albuquerque and Flagstaff and they need a tire fixed, there aren't a lot of options. So Gallup is a really great choice for them. And we want to make sure they know that they can come here and safely do that, and that they're going to be welcome to do that.
Thank you, Jennifer. That I'm going to touch back on some of that related to the retail analysis that was done. Before I go there, I want to go over to Cindy. And while Cindy's not recruiting visitors into the area per se, she does, I think, work with someone who wants to set up a recreation type business, outdoor recreation business. And Cindy, maybe you can speak to that as the steps that someone would go through, and maybe an experience you've had working with someone wanting to start an outdoor recreation business.
Sure. So again, our primary focus is to foster local and regional economic development. SBDCs help individuals realize the dream of business ownership, and our hope is to help guide individuals in the business development process, where it be the basics of starting a business, where they need to market, who the potential customers and clientele are, because we're so ingrained in our network locally. Our services are beneficial to the community we serve, and to us, in order to support our services as a trusted partner, maintaining long-standing relationships, networking, and our existence in the community gives us a great tide to bring in individuals to start tourism type businesses. Well, with that said, America's SBDCs helps entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses, and we create jobs, we increase prosperity and contribute to the community just by supporting their formation, and growth moves our economy forward and makes our communities healthier, building New Mexico's economy one business at a time.
Thank you, Cindy. So when we started looking at the retail sector, and it's not exactly in our wheelhouse because we're focused on industrial development, but we were noting, and we had a concern of a large amount of money leaving the community. People are buying cars in Flagstaff or Albuquerque, and they could be buying those things here. So we wanted to understand what was happening, apart from Amazon, and how we can keep more of that money in the community. So that was an impetus, as well as to improve the quality of life here in Gallup. So we really did a deep dive, and we worked with all of you guys on the panel, part of this task force on retail. And we had a professional consultant that I mentioned. And we were focused on addressing 3 areas to help improve Gallup's retail sector and to generate more sales and keep dollars in circulation here. So we were looking at entrepreneurs and new small businesses. And we focused also on retail business retention and expansion. How do we help the businesses that are here? And then the final part was, how do we attract businesses into Gallup that can fill some of those gaps, where if we're lacking a men's clothing store, what would make me want to buy my clothes here in Gallup, and how do I do that? I'd like you guys to speak to the specific areas you worked on in that retail study, and what you took away from it. And let me start with Kara.
Great, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I wanted to mention too that to sort of segue into the retail strategy, a lot of what Jennifer was mentioning, a lot of this data actually helps inform us as well. And we try to get this data to our small businesses or entrepreneurs as much as we can to say, this is where people are coming from, this is where we see gaps, or this is where we're seeing overages. And I think that's all very, very important. And it's, I think education around why those numbers or why that data is important is something that is ongoing, especially for our small business community, to help them understand where they could expand or why it might be beneficial to explore e-commerce or to market in different areas. So it all kind of connects together to help build a stronger business system downtown. But to get to the retail strategy, I want to focus specifically, on the recommendations, where the key takeaways from the report, but also the key takeaways for our organization. And I think where we intersect with that work and where we're engaged in that work is, primarily in where it was identified that, an attraction strategy is to create more vibrant commercial districts. And so if we're talking about downtown, we're addressing that through business development and through revitalization, placemaking, streetscaping, and identity. And so that's all work that we're engaged in that hopefully helps you build up a good base for attraction for retail to that district. We also, through that work, can help and are engaged in identifying priority sites for redevelopment in the downtown district. And then there's also one of the recommendations is to promote expansion and startups. So that intersects with the work that I was talking about that we do with the Resource Center to develop programs to sort of promote startups and business startups, and to sort of provide entrepreneurial education. And we're working on building that into leveraging partnerships regionally. And also, as another part of those recommendations was to create startup spaces or places for pop-up businesses. And that's something we're already undertaking and thinking about incubators and sort of how we can sort of micro grow businesses here to sort of start the seeds that'll grow into something bigger. And so that's how Gallup Main Street really intersects with that retail strategy.
Thank you, Kara. Rose, what part of the retail study did you work on, the groups in the roundtable, and what were your main takeaways from the consultant report?
We worked on the entrepreneurship and how to best support entrepreneurs and make sure that there are opportunities for success in starting, maintaining, and growing a business in Gallup. And to kind of pick up where Kara left off, and this idea of providing space for pop-up businesses or incubator space is kind of one of the major takeaways for Gallup Arts. We have a really strong network of artists, but how can we create more opportunities for informal mentorship through that network for artists to share what they've learned in the trenches, as Cindy said, and pass on that knowledge so that the next generation doesn't have to make the same mistakes or can learn from those mistakes and get that insight. And so that's kind of what Gallup Arts has been focused on vis-a-vis the retail attraction report. But I just want to step back and say too that I think one thing I don't want to get lost in this conversation, which is really kind of where Gallup Arts sits at, is yes, we work and a lot of our programs, especially like our New Deal Art Project, are focused on building tourism assets that Jennifer can go out and splash for us and help build is quality of life And if we're going to attract businesses and entrepreneurs, we need to make sure that the quality of life in Gallup is great for their families, and that they feel like they can really make this place home and that they want to settle here, especially when we're thinking about, as you mentioned, Bruce, the retail attraction study, finding a need for bringing in more entrepreneurs and more businesses to the community in addition to home growing them. And I think that's, again, where Gallup Arts fits in. A lot of our projects and programs serve the local community and give people something fun to do, something new to try, something interesting to spice up their routine. We have programs for kids, as I briefly mentioned, and so all that factors in too. And that's kind of another level of the discussion about entrepreneurship. And
Thank you. Cindy, what part did you work on in that?
I actually, exactly what Rose, I assisted her with that whole group. And one thing that was not mentioned was the lack of access to capital and access to I guess, other resources. But yeah, Kara and Rose covered it all. And I was with Rose's group.
And Jennifer, to your part on the retail study?
Well, this study was really
Roundtable.
helpful for me, and it is, especially from within the marketing standpoint. Like, for example, when you look, there's a lodging market analysis, there's a visitor analysis, there's a dining market analysis. And I had a lot of conversations with Michael in regards to all of those things. And, I did serve as the city's point of contact, but there's some great data in here that some of the initiatives that I am working on are striving to grow. So for example, within the dining market analysis, it talks about how there is potentially an available market demand for over $200 million for people to come dine in this community. Because for one, we need to capture more traffic off of I-40, but then number two, the visitor makeup in our restaurant industry based on this data is more than our local makeup in this data. So for example, the new website will have an updated business directory. We've hired a photographer. She's photographing food or insides of businesses, kind of depends on the business owner's preference. And the new business listings will have maps to the locations. It will have listings of the amenities. It'll have tie-throughs into business websites and social media. Additionally, those digital kiosks that I mentioned are tied to a program called Visit Widget. We're adding a widget to the website where the consumer can come on there, get into the website and go, I really want to go to this hotel and check out this shop and this restaurant. And they can build directions. They can text themselves that, they can email themselves those things. And it allows them through that widget to be able to discover more of our businesses, because Yellow Pages, frankly, is a thing of the past. So what I'm trying to do with these businesses is to have beautiful and captivating, listings on our site and through this, digital concierge thing, so that they can find the opportunity to discover more in our community. So there's a lot of really good things in this. We've got just the visitor market analysis, and Michael also worked with all of us to create marketing materials that are not just specific to the community, but also industry-wise. So there is a marketing page for tourism related things. There's other things like that. So it's been a pleasure to be involved in this as the city's representative, because the discussions with Mr. Stump were healthy and challenging and robust, and have given us a lot of tools to really leverage to look at how can we help our businesses.
Great. Well, I want to go back to the outdoor recreation topic and touch on that a little bit more. And I want to wrap up by 5:15 to allow time for questions from the audience. And if you do have questions on your mind, go ahead and put them in the chat box, but we will open it up for questions in a few minutes.
So
going back to Gallup, Gallup is the adventure capital of New Mexico. So outdoor recreation initiatives underway include the McKinley County and the New Mexico Outdoor Recreation Atlas that's being put together. New Mexico Economic Development Department recently added an outdoor recreation division. Could you speak to pushing speak to the push to develop outdoor recreation in the state and how Gallup is responding and what kinds of opportunities you're seeing for McKinley County and Gallup in this growing area of tourism. And I just put that out there to Jennifer, Cindy, and Kara and Rose, if you want to respond, but go ahead, Jennifer, on that.
Well, first I want to say the really great thing is we have a lot of incredible assets. We have strategic plans, MRAs, other things like that, that outline not only assets that have been developed, but potential for future development. And the state's choice to launch the Outdoor Recreation Division is so timely and poignant. And who would have known a pandemic would drop, honestly? And it has been really integral. Gallup has been a recipient of funding from that department in several ways. Mr. Scott Neidham, entrepreneur, definitely, got funding for Silver Stallion Bikes and Coffee to create a vehicle that travels around the reservation and repairs bicycles for people all across the reservation through funding from the state's initiatives, and is growing not only the nonprofit, but looking at ways to leverage that into brick and mortar opportunities in downtown Gallup. And so there's a lot of great assets existing. There's those tenacious entrepreneurs like Scott Neidham or Kevin Menapace, for example, who runs High Desert Cycles here in Gallup for that OHVA TV sector. But there's also really great partnerships. McKinley County was selected, and I just saw, I think, Kelly, you're here from Groundwork Studio. McKinley County was selected for a pilot project by the New Mexico Main Street. And they're working with Groundwork Studio to develop an outdoor recreation atlas. So what this atlas is going to do is outline not only here are great existing assets that could use more resources, whether it's signage, promotion, trailhead development, et cetera, but also what are future projects that could be identified that could really build outdoor recreation infrastructure within the county. And so 5 counties in New Mexico were chosen, and we're really proud to be one of those counties participating in that. And we're especially excited about Main Street's role in that initiative, because you're looking at now 2 portions of the economic development team at the state level, that outdoor recreation plus Main Street. Because what Main Street's aiming to do is not only identify what the assets are, but identify the opportunity for a business owner, existing or a future business entrepreneur, to leverage those great assets. So if we know the assets and we understand what we need to do to continue to foster and grow those assets, now we can foster and grow the entrepreneurs that are looking to build around those assets, because outdoor recreation assets draw a lot of tourism. And they're huge quality of life metrics or value for anyone, to be able to go out and hike and bike and do those things. It's a wellness thing. So I want to just set that up, because not a lot of people know that initiative is going on, and it's very exciting partnership, again, across multiple state agencies that can only benefit us in the long term.
And Jennifer, this is, as you mentioned, the Atlas is underway almost as we speak. There's a meeting tomorrow and a spreadsheet that just came out right before this meeting listing about 12 projects that are going to be in that Atlas. And I'd just like to identify a few of those. You've got Adventure Gallup and Beyond Initiative, Aztec Avenue Bike Lane, Bicycle Network Map, Bicycle Routes Network, Community Walking Trail, and it goes on with the trails for equestrian and multiple uses. So just looking at the list, it's very exciting and suggests kind of opportunities that we can start taking advantage of. Kara,
I want to make one clarification to that list, because it confused me, and Amy, who's the representative from Groundwork, is the bomb. That is the list of future potential projects, or projects that just have, your baby steps. The Atlas is still going to include completed infrastructure and things like that. So for example, the High Desert Trail, the Red Rock Park, and, because some of that infrastructure, like the High Desert Trail, has additional leverage with partnerships like Gallup Land Partners and things like that. So those materials are going to be included, but right now, Amy is working to capture just the exciting new stuff to make sure that we're identifying the right project. So there's a lot of potential for outdoor recreation for both quality of life, community development, entrepreneurship, and just tourism development across the board in McKinley County.
Great. Kara, did you want to speak to that piece?
Yeah, I will briefly. I'll say, as we've mentioned a couple times, this is very much underway, and we're really excited to be at the table. So we really envision downtown Gallup as a place that can be a hub for adventure, and I think, and for these entrepreneurs to have their business offices, locations, brick and mortars, et cetera, and for everything to sort of branch out from here. And I think that, we can think of maybe other districts in other places that serve in that way. And I think it's very easy to see downtown Gallup being that. So we want to be able to provide the resources for business development, and obviously the site selection and sourcing as well. But I also think I just want to kind of tie a little bit of the conversation together. I know we're about to go to questions about arts and culture and the outdoor economy, is that quality of life has come up so much. And I think it's really important in the landscape we're in here in Gallup, and especially for us in downtown Gallup, that's a really big piece of the puzzle. So when we are talking about revitalization and growing sort of pride, growing networks, growing relationships, some of these more intangible aspects of what it means to develop an entrepreneurial ecosystem, or to grow small business, or to attract new business. I think it's really, that's a really important part of the conversation in where we're at. So I'm just noting that it came up many times, and it came up in the retail analysis report, as well as other reports that have been done here in Gallup as well.
It's very good. Thank you for all of that. I want to turn it over to questions. There was a question in the sidebar, and we've barely mentioned COVID, which makes me happy in a way, but COVID is very much present. And I have a question: is there a formal business recovery program underway? Anyone, if you want to take that.
There are a couple of things underway. The first thing that's happening right now is the mayor is, we've been having a lot of conversations off the record with individuals and businesses, because what we have learned recently is that some of the strategies we thought would be appropriate to roll out right now, the industry shifted in ways that impacted businesses differently than everyone thought. So for example, with the wide scale reopening, many businesses are having employee retention and recovery difficulties. So where originally we thought business owners would be willing to come to the table, and they still are, to discuss positive options and ways that we can support them, what we're finding is many businesses are very much struggling to meet the day-to-day requirements to get open to the levels they were pre-COVID-19. And so we're still doing some active listening as a city of Gallup. And I know my partner Bill over at the Chamber of Commerce is very much dealing with this too. And Kara with the Cole Avenue Commons, Kara and Rose with Cole Avenue Commons, and listening to those businesses and trying to assess where are we at now? Because what we thought businesses were going to need when we started discussions is turning out to be very different from what we've been able to offer or can offer right now, because we can't, as a city or even a chamber or Main Street or an arts and cultural district or and arts council, we can't put bodies in the business, and so our biggest encouragement right now from all of these sectors is to encourage people to go look for those jobs, because they exist. And especially because, like I said to you, last year we were at 30% occupancy and now we're at 63. My hoteliers, for example, are desperately looking for front desk. They're looking for cleaning people because they had to cut all of those positions in the pandemic because they couldn't sustain them at 40% occupancy or 25% occupancy. But now some of those individuals may have moved on, they've gone to university, or they are not interested in taking a position at this moment. We're not sure the reason that the workforce isn't returning, but we know it's not. And so the good news is the existing workforce is seeing a lot of overtime and real, if you are currently working, there's a lot of opportunity for you, but it's very stressful for that workforce as well, because they can only work so many hours. So locally, we're identifying, number one, what are some of the workforce solutions we can look at to encourage employees to just go back out into the workforce and to trust the CDC's guidance, the federal guidance, because there's also just fear that you don't want to be interacting with people, or, we want people to get vaccinated. So the city has been using all of its own media channels to really promote the state and federal vaccination messages, because we understand that that is going to also support getting businesses open, getting that workforce developed. The next steps are the mayor will be holding a virtual and possibly semi-in-person kind of conversations with business owners and other, both entrepreneurs through people who've been in the business for 50 years. But we're kind of waiting for the sweet spot in that, because in our conversations, again, as a city, some of those business owners can't get away from the cash register because they don't have enough employees. So we can't expect them to hop on a Zoom call. We've had roundtables, for example, I know Bill Lee has had roundtables set up through the chamber, and there was this great enthusiasm. And then all of a sudden we went to Turquoise, which is an enormous blessing, but then didn't have the infrastructure to support being open anymore. So that's kind of the number one thing right now, is testing the waters, understanding we want people vaccinated. We want people making safe and healthy choices so we continue to remain open. And then we want to encourage people to apply for things, apply for things that perhaps you hadn't thought was something you were interested in before, because there are many sectors, and I can tell you very clearly, the hospitality sector loves to train, and there's some great education and great opportunity for upward mobility in the hospitality sector. So, Bill, I saw you pop on there. If you want to add to that, because you've had some interactions with businesses specifically as the chamber, I'll invite you to say something there.
Thank you, Jennifer. You kind of hit the nail on the head. It is both a blessing and a curse that business has come back as robustly as it has. If you talk to, for example, any one of our restaurant owners, they'll tell you that when we began to be opened up and went from the red to green, then to turquoise, they fully anticipated that their to-go business would drop off. And that people would start returning to the seats in the chairs. Well, people did come to put seats in the chairs, but they also continued to see a robust to-go business. And so combined with the shortage of workforce, which I think is beginning to be addressed both on the state and federal level, really, as Jennifer said, business owners are focused on just trying to keep their doors open with limited staffing and doing the best they can. And our goal is to, and we've made several efforts at doing this through social media, but to encourage people to be patient when they're dealing with our local businesses, because they are short-staffed, and know that things may take a little bit longer to get serviced, but that they are there to help. And from a standpoint of working statewide through the New Mexico Chamber Executives Association and the New Mexico Chamber, which we are all a part of that coalition, we have been advocating to the governor's office to make sure that the rules of seeking employment are put back into place. That went into place again this past week, which we think will be a benefit. So in order to gain unemployment benefits, you must now begin to prove that you are seeking employment and that you have applied for jobs. And so that will help on a statewide effort and here locally. And then we know that there's some movement at the congressional level, federally, to see that same thing happen. And I think once that happens, I think we'll start to see our workforce slowly come back. Right now, there are many positions that are open, but they, to be quite honest, don't pay as well as what some people have been making on unemployment. And so that becomes a real problem and a real factor in the decision on whether or not to go back to work. Certainly COVID has hit us hard, but I think as hard as we got hit, I am very proud of McKinley County and its robust response to get people vaccinated. We lead the state in vaccinations. The CDC today issued new guidelines. We're waiting to see if the state will follow suit, but new guidelines that in fact, if you're now vaccinated, you no longer have to wear a mask. So those kinds of things are going to continue to be important to those who are not only consumers, but to those who are re-entering the workforce. to know that safety is still a paramount concern by our employers, but that things are getting better and that McKinley County is kind of leading the way once again in the state in terms of our response to getting people vaccinated and keeping people healthy. So I think we'll start to see a return. The nice part of this is that there is a thirst out there and a pretty robust economy right now. And I think the GRT reports that the city and the county will be receiving over the next quarter are going to show significant increase. So when it comes to bringing back business and that recovery, I think Jennifer is spot on. We're kind of all taking a deep breath right now, and there will be a time for us to really discover and say, what did we learn and what can we pull from our experiences to make our community better in terms of business. So I think that time will come, but right now, simply keeping the doors open is a priority for the businesses.
Thank you, Bill, for that. In our final few minutes, I want to recognize a few people who've joined us. Cecilia Pacheco, you're working in partnership with Kara and out of UNM and the innovative, I don't think I have the title right, Innovative Forest, but could you tell us about that program and this partnership?
Hey, yeah. So I met Bruce and Kara last year via Zoom, and Kara decided that she agreed to be one of our university center mentors. So I work with UNM Rainforest Innovations. We are the Technology Transfer Office and Economic Development Office for the University of New Mexico. And through a grant that we received from the EDA, we have been able to start partnering with the UNM branch campuses in order to help facilitate economic development, job creation, entrepreneurship, not just here in Albuquerque, but also in the more rural communities via the UNM branch campuses. So it's really great to be here and to be able to listen in on all the great things that you guys are doing in Gallup. And basically what our goal is as the New Mexico Rainforest University Center is to provide support in whatever way we can with our programming, our resources, and our connections without duplicating anything that you guys are already doing in your community. And the ultimate goal is that, so we have the Lobo Rainforest building here in Albuquerque, which has grown to become like a main, as Kara had mentioned, like an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Albuquerque. And so the ultimate goal, using this grant money and the program that we're developing with the University Center, is to help rural communities such as Gallup, Taos, Valencia, and Los Alamos create their own ecosystems, their own self-sustainable ecosystems. And from what it sounds like, Gallup is well on its way towards having their own type of rainforest center in Gallup. Taos is also they have the Taos Hive. So it's really great to see this activity going on. And I do have one opportunity that I just want to mention. I'm going to send you, Bruce and Kara, an email about it. But we do have our e-commerce course that we've been doing since the pandemic started. We received more funding for that, and we will be starting a new cohort in June. And I think it would be a good opportunity to just let more members of your community know about that course. It's all online. It provides really good strategies for launching an online shop. We do have an artist in Gallup. Her name's Virginia. She took the course and she set up her online shop. So I think it might be a good opportunity for Rose as well with the Gallup Arts. So we're just here to help provide further support with whatever you need.
Thank you, Cecilia. It's great to know an additional resource that helps us grow our businesses. I also want to recognize Lorraine Ruggles. She's our regional rep from New Mexico Economic Development Department. And she helps not only keep us aware of funding sources, but sends us a weekly digest of all the news headlines. And for those of us who sometimes don't have time to read the newspaper, that's a very welcome source of information. And this business, economic development, as Jennifer suggested, is driven by information and data. So we're all getting our heads around that, just as we're getting our heads around being on Zoom meetings and relating virtually. So this is a new kind of forum for me, and I'm really excited about the opportunities it offers. And I just want to thank all the partners and everybody who is here today for joining us to help celebrate Economic Development Week. And we'll find ways to keep this conversation going. And I'm just going to put up contact information as we close out and share my screen so you can reach out directly to any of us. I don't have Lorraine's information on there, but you can contact me and get that. So I'm sharing my screen. Are you seeing the contact information? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Greatly appreciate all that you do to make Gallup what it is.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for hosting and moderating.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you, Bruce.
Good
Been a
morning,
pleasure.
Bruce.
Everybody have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
Thank you.